Audio is on mute. Thank you, Jill.
Okay, so now I can open it back in. Yeah, so this is good.
So we're good. And for taxi neighbor next door. Be back.
Okay, see ya. Good luck over there.
And
Is it just you two in the room?
Yep.
Chapin wrote a note that he was going to be a little late because he's going to some library something meeting. Um, yeah.
And Shayla won't make it tonight. I don't know about anyone else. That's state for making. What?
Did he leave?
Yeah.
How many do we need?
We need four, so we do
Okay.
have a quorum, but, so yeah, I guess we could get it going.
Cool. I don't know what the RSVP was, so.
Yeah, we do know Chapin is coming, but he said he'd be a few minutes late. So,
I think that was me just submitting.
oh, okay.
Because I got one.
All right, so I guess with 5, we can call this meeting to order. We don't have any members of the public, but does anyone present have any comments or items not on the agenda that they would like to discuss? And maybe this is Chapin. Hey, Chapin. Matt just went over to the select board, but he'll be back in like 20 minutes. And we just called meeting to order and asked about any items for discussion that are not on the agenda.
I don't think so.
Okay. Great. And now the minutes for September 7th, that's not. Should it be the minutes of September 17th or October 3rd?
October 1st,
Yeah,
and the link is correct,
okay.
and I made one change of 2 letters.
Yeah, I made one grammatical edit and then like it said the adjourn time was 7:24, which I didn't think was right. And so I asked a question if that was the right time, but that was the only edit.
No, we were on the early side, right? Was it 8:24?
Yeah, I thought maybe it was off by an hour.
I didn't notice that.
And then there was one, there was another, the public access PDF link within the minutes, brought it to like August 20th.
Oh,
It just wasn't.
I actually went through the website and I got to the right one.
Oh, okay.
So it's just the email. It's probably wrong.
Okay.
Probably copied email.
Yeah.
All right. Do we have a motion to?
Are you
Sep-
looking at it now and are you seeing the changes that are suggested or?
Yeah, it looks like there was just well, I see the couple that I made. I don't see any, oh yeah, no, I see the removed right there.
Yes.
And
You want me to pull it up on the screen?
Yes.
Sure.
I changed moved to removed.
Was it me or from Emily?
yeah, I'm happy to forward it if that. It's so fascinating.
Do people who are zooming have comments on the minutes?
Does anyone on Zoom have comments?
No.
No,
And while we're pulling it up, I'll just move, so it's on the table, I'll move that we adopt the minutes as amended. And the changes I put in were as a reviewer, so they're just suggested changes, so.
I can second that.
All in favor of approving the minutes as
Oh,
amended?
did you want to change that to an 8:24 one?
Probably here, you can, you've got a YouTube recording, you can see how long the meeting was.
Yeah,
Yeah, is 8:24 seems more right.
yeah, I was wondering if just maybe like that time hadn't been updated from the prior meeting, which was a
Which
really
was so
short
short.
one. So I
Yeah,
thought maybe
it
that
was
one was
even
actually
shorter than that,
7:24 and then
yeah.
that one was just never changed. And so that's why I clicked on the link and then
Yeah.
that's how I noticed that that one got August.
So in terms of with revisions, it includes changing that 7 to an 8.
To whatever is determined to be the
Yeah.
correct time.
Okay, I'll just make.
Okay.
And then I'll let Emily know.
Yeah, 8:13 is when the recording stops. 21. 21:13,
Oh,
9:13.
that's
Oh,
9:13.
that's 9. Yeah, I was gonna say, we went overtime in our last meeting.
Yeah, because I
Um,
jumped off to go see the debate, so I know you were over.
Oh,
yeah.
Good, good.
Okay.
Yeah.
The minutes were so short, I thought maybe that was. We did have a lot of discussion.
All right, all in favor of approving the minutes as amended?
I,
Do you need a vote to pass them?
Don't you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, like I wasn't here,
Oh,
so I'll
yeah.
abstain if you
Oh,
don't need
uh,
it,
We
but
have-
I can,
if we
they
have
look
4
good.
people, and I think you have 4 there.
Yeah. So opposed, abstaining. Just one. Hannah.
So Hannah's abstaining.
Due
You
to
got that? You
absence,
got that,
not.
Hannah?
to-
Yep.
There's only
Hannah's-
one M.
Yeah.
Okay, minutes are approved. Moving on to the comments from Williston on the move about transportation, which is a link in the agenda that Emily sent, and it was comments from Williston on the move, making suggestions on the draft transportation. Yeah,
I thought they were fantastic.
Yeah, I
I
thought
agreed
they were
with all of them. There was one that I'm not sure that we want to put in, and I can't remember which one it was. But I thought we should refer it to I forget what color team has transportation.
Yeah, we do. I've been. Matt and I are gonna meet this week. I've been trying to like. Figure out how to, yeah, get stuff done with him.
I didn't know there was such a group as well.
Me neither.
But when I looked at who's doing it, they are qualified to make good comments, and they did make good comments. So I feel like we should incorporate them as much as we think makes sense.
Mhm. Yeah, I think the transportation chapter is still pretty sparse right now, and so like. There's room to incorporate, like I thought they were all. Really good.
Yeah. Any other discussion or thoughts about the comments? I agree. I read through them and thought they were all good suggestions. Okay. So the next parts of the town plan on the agenda, a link to the draft town plan, which I assume is all of the individual ones put together. Yeah, I'm not sure if there was a,
I wonder if we should come back to that.
Yeah,
With Matt's here.
yeah, agreed. I don't know how we can dig into that without, Matt or Emily. I kind of feel similarly about the, next item as well. But we can start talking about the capital budget comment letter that was included in the agenda.
That was our letter we sent last year, I mean, in January.
Yeah,
The budget that was started in July 1st. And what was interesting to me is the link we were given was to last year's operating budget. And I was confused by that because it's the capital budget that we comment on. And what we have asked for is to be shown at this time of year, what's in the working capital budget, not what was in last year's.
yeah.
So
So actually, I have a slight update on that. Shayla and Eric and me and Matt have a meeting set up tomorrow to talk about that, because Shayla had put a reminder on her calendar to say like, oh yeah, it's that time of year where we can actually
Exactly.
start to be included in that
Exactly.
conversation. So that's,
So I felt as though all the things we put in the letter last year are still relevant. And I would look to see that there's improvement in this year's capital budget proposal, and we haven't seen that yet.
yeah, definitely stand by everything that
It,
we already wrote.
it also impressed me how many millions we spend on public safety.
Oh, like as a part of the pie.
Yes, like
Yeah.
3.5 million on police, 3.5 million on fire. I don't know. These are roughly whatever. And less than that on public works. It maintains all the infrastructure in town, and then less than that on parks and rec, and then way less than that on conservation and stuff.
Mhm.
And so it's just impressive to me. Basically, our budget is saying, our operating budget, not our capital, our operating budget is saying safety is what matters. And short-term safety, responding to a 911 call is what matters.
And we're more in a position to need to be reactive than proactive. At least
Yeah.
that's where we're
Yes,
spending.
we're spending our money in reactive safety, not in proactive safety as much.
I know this was the letter from last year. Were we looking at it to inform a letter that we're looking to send this upcoming year? Because there was something in it, like what?
I assume so, because the agenda item is FY 26 budget review preview. And so I assume this was maybe just like a refresher to remind us kind of what we were thinking around this last year at this time.
And if we could see the working capital budget for FY 26, we would see if it has taken to heart any of our recommendations. That's, to me,
Right.
it was right to look at the letter we already sent, and now we want to see, did it result in changes this year?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because something that stood out to me was the comments last year we made around the vehicle fleets. The town should replace non-emergency light duty vehicles with electric vehicles, and I don't think that happened this year. And I had an interesting conversation with the the founder of Vermont Car Share and Shelburne, when they needed to purchase a new town vehicle, and they actually came to an agreement with Vermont Car Share that I think if the town is gonna acquire something like, obviously like not like heavy duty trucks that need to be used for plowing, but like light duty, puttering around, if we have those types of vehicles, like thinking about a similar arrangement might be something that we could highlight here instead of just being like, we should just replace them full scale. I think it would be cool to call out like, it could be an opportunity to partner with Car Share Vermont, obviously considering the town's usage of the vehicle and what they would expect versus, how that needs to work.
So was the idea that car share took some of the cost and it was available when it was not needed for town business for residents to use?
Yeah. And Car Share managed I think in that exact scenario, the town, since they didn't have an existing fleet down there, The town basically sponsored the new fleet vehicle. But CarShare Vermont managed like kind of the usage, maintenance, scheduling, all of those types of things. So yeah, it operated around when did the town was not using it, the public could use it, and it seems like the village could be a good location for that, like here anyways, so.
Yeah.
See, one of the answers we've received in the past is that the state has, like last year when they bought a vehicle for the stormwater coordinator or something, it was like, the state didn't have a recommended vendor for electric vehicles. And that's true. Because the state is slow moving and is careful about who they recommend, and they don't recommend something that's brand new until it has some experience. At the same time, police departments like in Essex have been using battery hybrid cruisers for several years. And so do we want to lean into it, or do we want to say we're not doing anything until the state tells us what is best to do?
Yeah, and I think our letter from last year just emphasized being proactive and, no, let's do it now.
The electric vehicles cost more upfront and cost less to operate. So if you look at the lifetime cost of it, it's not as big a hit as the upfront cost looks like.
Right.
Yeah, I was also, I just pulled it up, they got a Prius, so hybrid, a plug-in hybrid,
Oh,
um,
that's good.
Yeah.
Good, that's newer. The one that I was referring to was purchased maybe the year before.
So with that pod, like what is it used for, like with the town employees, like what?
yeah,
department, I guess.
To be honest, I either don't remember or didn't learn.
That's
Um,
totally-
I'm not quite sure. I just know that they had a need for another vehicle, and I guess they got a new town manager, and he had worked in a larger city that had car share more readily available. And he was like, well, we don't need a solely dedicated
Right.
vehicle. So it would be great to like utilize it in this way. So I think that was the impetus.
I guess it would be like replacing, like having mileage reimbursed.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the reasons that it was in the capital improvement plan, was to replace. The town should evaluate the cost of purchasing one or more small passenger Bs as an alternative to the current process of reimbursing employees for mileage driven. So it feels like that could be another. Yeah, another push.
But this will work only if they already have a car share outlet at the town center, right? Physical car share location as a one destination at the town center, so that the cars are there. If anybody can use it, right, they can tap and use it like any other car share, right? But they don't have an outlet at the town center, then the
Like,
kind
so
of
the,
sharing will not work.
well, yeah, it would be people in the village.
Yeah.
Who, could use it, which is obviously a lower population density than say Taft's Corners, but.
But it could even be teachers during their lunch break when they have to go down to pick up a medication at the Shaw's pharmacy or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think there's enough walking distance to this parking lot
Mhm.
that it could be
Yeah.
utilized.
Does CarShare have sites in Williston? I would be surprised if
They don't right
They
now.
don't?
No.
Okay.
So that will be the
I-
first thing that need to happen, right?
Sorry,
Couldn't quite hear you.
No, that will be the first thing that need to happen, right? They need to have a site somewhere in Williston. Obviously, the most important thing is have to be somewhere at the town, so the town employee, if it is a replacement for town car, right?
yeah, I think
That
it
will
would
have
be
to
in
be
the
there.
town lot.
Yeah, it'd be here.
It would be here.
Have to be, right? Yeah.
And I think CarShare would probably like to partner with the town to get a start, and then would have other businesses would.
Yeah, it will follow through later on. Of course.
Yeah, and they had a number of, they had a number of different ways that they established pods, it sounded like, in terms of. Who covers what share of what, it sounded like they were. Kind of working with towns and organizations.
Thank you.
Mickey, can you say something so we can see if we were able to turn up the volume?
How is it? Now it's better?
Oh, yeah,
Is that better?
yeah,
that.
yeah. There was a fan running,
Oh, okay.
and the volume's up now, cool. Yeah, definitely the air purifier.
What's next?
What's next is the Oak Hill Road Safety Study update.
Anna?
And what's after that is
I don't know.
So I was actually at that meeting.
oh great. How'd it go?
I can give you my impression of it. I wasn't prepared at all to give any kind of report on this, but yeah, it was, I do have some notes and I even have them in front of me, which is a miracle. So just quickly, this was last week. It was coordinated by one of the transportation engineers at CCRPC, Sai Sarapalli, and another CCRPC planner was there, Jason Charest. And then some other people who were there were Matt and Melinda and Bruce Hoare from DPW and Christine Doherty, who's I think the assistant person at DPW.
Yes.
Yeah. And then the chief of police, Pat Foley, and Kevin, who is on the Williston on the Move
Yes, Kevin Batson.
committee. No, not Kevin Batson, a different
Kevin
Kevin.
Thorley? Kevin Thorley?
Maybe. He's a cyclist. He's probably, I don't know, in his late 40s, something like that, 40s. Anyway, I hope he doesn't watch this recording and get insulted by my guess on his age. So basically the meeting, like Kevin kicked it off really quick, talking immediately about the challenges of cycling on Oak Hill Road. And which was fantastic in my mind because that's something I really wanted to talk about. And I'm not sure how I got invited to it, except that I've been complaining about Oak Hill Road for like 15 years. So,
Yeah.
And being a member of the Planning Commission, I guess, too. And so the area that they're reviewing for Oak Hill Road, I didn't realize this at first, is only between the four-way stop in the village and the intersection with Butternut Road, which is up on top of that big overlook. So it's not the rest of Oak Hill Road that would go past like the other end of South Road and then all the way to the sort of St. George, Heinsberg town lines. Which is a little unfortunate because that is also has some safety concerns, especially high speed in that big open section when you go past like Isham and that area. So, but even so, in my mind, as a, as also a, as a cyclist, but also as a resident essentially of Oak Hill Road, right near the four-way stop, I was really very adamant that we need to pay, even within that span that they were focusing on, I really asked them to pay special attention to the section between the four-way stop and the first South Road intersection, which is literally only a quarter mile, right? It's just the section from the village to the top of the overpass and just after the overpass of I-89. And that's based, primarily on my own experience of nearly being killed multiple times. And I'm not kidding. Like seriously, very, very angry people in cars and other vehicles who are delayed slightly in that section because cyclists can't ride uphill very fast, and it's very narrow in there. There is literally not space for two cars to pass, as well as one cyclist to be on the road. I've even been passed going downhill, and I go the speed limit. I go 30 down the hill in that section, and people still try to pass me, even though there's a no passing sign, right? So there's all kinds of like all the problems of Oak Hill Road, of being narrow and having short sight distances and not having any clearance or kind of accommodations for cyclists. All of that kind of gets magnified in my experience again, in that first quarter mile or whatever it is.
And for background, you asked the speed limit be lowered from 40 to 35
Yes,
there, and it was.
I did. I asked it to be lowered to 30, but they only agreed to 35.
Yeah. And now it's been repaved, so it's easier to go faster again.
Exactly. Yeah, and more on that in a moment. But one of the things I pointed out is that all the other approaches to the four-way stop in the village are 30 miles an hour because Route 2 is 30 miles an hour in that section. Also, South Brownell Road, which is parallel to Oak Hill Road, if you look on the map. And it has the exact same configuration where it comes from a more rural setting. It goes over the highway and comes down into it's farther away, the intersection with that be Marshall Ave. Okay. Yeah. That's first of all, that's a lighted intersection, right? With stoplights. Traffic lights.
Signal.
Secondly, it's very low residential area on South Brownell in that section, but the speed limit there is 30. And so I was like, okay, so what's up, right? So they're going to look into that, see what's going on with that. And I tried to push for having this wasn't even me. It was kind of a general conversation about the possibility of making it a 10-foot lane with the white line striping on Oak Hill Road on that pretty much that whole section from four-way stop to Butternut. Bruce Hoare was very, very opposed to that, even though it is allowable. Heinsberg does it. If you ride the town line, like all of a sudden the line moves over when you get to Williston and you have like 3 inches. And that, it's not feasible to ride, even on the Heinsberg side, it's not feasible to ride a bike in, 1.5 feet or something like that. It's not a true bike lane, but the visual component of narrowing the lane does have some limited, but some traffic calming effect. So then a lot of what we talked about then was essentially traffic calming possibilities. And I think I reported out on this at our last meeting, but I had requested to Bruce, Matt, and Eric Wells that that we have signs posted for the new state law that drivers are required to give 4 feet clearance for vulnerable road users, including cyclists and pedestrians. And so we talked about that for a little bit. The other, I hope that would help because a lot of it. And I should say Chief Foley was very much supportive of this. And he said that uh, he had literally the day before had given a presentation to all of his officers about the new state law about 4 foot passing. So at this point, if somebody calls in and says, "Hey, this car passed me too close," blah blah blah, or if an officer actually sees them passing too close, any interaction with the driver would be educational about the new law, which is fine. Like, we need all the education we can get, right? But I think the signs, and I've seen examples of this in Massachusetts because they passed a law very similar, I think either at the same time or a little bit before us. And the signs that they have are very clear about, like, okay, here's the cyclist, here's 4 feet, here's the car. So that was, Cy, the person who had organized the meeting in the first place. He was taking a lot of notes about those kinds of things. And also, I can stop anytime. I'm just figuring that since we don't have the people needed, I can't tell who's in the room actually. But if you want me to keep going, I can. I have a couple more things I could tell you. But since I'm not in the room, it's hard to get a sense of the mood and interest in me continuing. So why don't you let me know what's going on? Oops, you just muted yourselves.
Oh.
Oh, there we go. Oh, now there's an echo.
You have 2 planning and zoning
Yeah.
feeds. Yeah, which
You guys
could be
should be
confusing.
good now. But
Yeah.
we are getting an echo.
But we've been
So
getting an
that
echo out of
needs
that
to
one
be,
for a while.
But I tried to X the volume and it still didn't work.
So this one's muted.
But the volume, because you're gonna have
It's,
feedback on
it's
it.
still showing the sound.
Yeah.
So Megan, what I was wondering is, you talked about line striping, you talked about a slower speed limit in the part closest to the intersection with the church. Was there other discussion, like about future plans to have a CCRPC study to see what it would take to add a bike lane?
Yeah, so so there are plans for a scoping study, but there basically isn't space for a bike lane. That would require like the entire reconstruction of the road. I don't think that would happen. And so and I can understand that. Like, I see how it would be really hard, very, very challenging. It's extremely expensive. I guess I'm partly interested in kind of more short, not short term in the sense that they only last a little while, but short term, like near term solutions.
Yes.
I had also raised the question of whether we could if there could be sharrows on the road, indicating that cyclists have the right to use the full lane if needed. And for some of the faster sections going downhill, that's absolutely appropriate. And also going uphill when there's a blind hill or something like that, to be in the middle of the lane and have that right. Like, we already have that right. That's been there for a long time, but it's about educating drivers that that is the case. And then my very unpopular suggestion, my last suggestion, was about the South Road intersection. So the one obviously South Road is a jug handle. It hits Oak Hill Road twice. The one I'm talking about is the one close to the village, right on the other side of the overpass. That South Road is a very popular road for both cyclists and runners. And so living right here, I see people running up over the overpass on Oak Hill Road and then onto South Road all the time. They go out to Mud Pond, they go out to quieter roads, whatever it is. And so it's not just bikes, but obviously I'm as a cyclist, that's what I'm sensitive to. The key thing for the South Road intersection there is that most cyclists are coming up the steep overpass hill and trying to turn left onto South Road as they're heading south, right? And making that left turn is extremely hard. You're moving slowly, so turning her all the way around and seeing if there's something behind you is tricky. People are going fast and they're actually accelerating, so they don't want to give you any space. They aren't expecting a bike to suddenly want to turn. I mean, people who commute all the time probably know that, but there's a lot of through traffic on that road. That road is above capacity. You know, it's like it wasn't built to carry that kind of capacity. And so I feel like that intersection with South Road, my very unpopular suggestion was actually a three-way stop there. And that I was trying to think as a cyclist, what would make me feel the most comfortable turning left onto South Road? And the answer was really a three-way stop. I feel like that would also slow people down as they came into that last section, you know, coming north into the village. They wouldn't be slamming on the brakes close to the four-way stop. And it would overall make it safer in that intersection. So anyway, so that's my very biased report on the safety audit / scoping study plans. There was some other discussion of things like Strava heat maps to demonstrate where the most intensely used cycling routes are in town. And CCRPC, Brian Davis at CCRPC apparently has pretty good access to those data. There's kind of an extra, it's not like just a user of Strava doesn't have the highest level of data for those kinds of things. So that will be looked at. So anyway, so sorry if I took a lot of time with that and give you probably more details than you cared about, but it was
good.
actually a really good meeting. I felt like there was a lot. We talked about a lot in an hour, so that was good.
Was it still ongoing, or are they producing or is this like a middle, like a in progress update, or will there be like a formal report coming? Like, was this the middle? Is this the end? Where is it at?
I think it's the very beginning.
Okay.
They said there would be a memo of some sort, kind of summarizing. They're going to do some data, like traffic data, you know, maybe Sai asked me about the Strava heat maps, those kinds of things, and do the kind of baseline data collection and generate a memo. And the estimate for that was going to be like January, I think. Yeah. So, and Matt probably has like far more official report to provide or update, I guess. So
It sounds like you've covered quite a lot of it, Megan, but yeah, so everybody knows this safety study, this was a kickoff meeting for the safety study, you know, bringing together CCRPC, town officials and committee members. And this is a study being done under technical assistance by CCRPC. So this is something we don't really spend any money on. It's a small scale project. It's one that can be done in-house by their staff. So it's not a full-blown scoping study like what we're having done to look at the pedestrian and bike connection between the village and Taft Corners, where we actually also recently had a kickoff, which involved Melinda and myself driving and walking the corridor with staff from a private consultant that had been hired through that process. So that's sort of the next level, is you go up to something like a scoping study where you're really having an engineer look at a corridor and come up with alternatives and help the community arrive at a preferred alternative. Beyond that, there are things like design and obviously actual construction if you build something. So this is sort of the very lowest level, but it's the thing we can do the fastest and the least expensively. I think there was a really good vigorous discussion about how much roadway the town is working with. And I don't know that there was agreement around the table, but the reasonableness of adjusting speed limits to the straightness, volume, and et cetera, of that roadway. Basically, you can do some things like that. You can drop speed limits, you can change where speed zones are, you can try to increase awareness, but the little sign on the side of the road that says go 30 when the road says go 50 is a challenge. Now, I don't actually think Oak Hill Road says go 50 by its design, other than its very straight nature across a lot of its distance. And the fact that it has a very high population of people who like to go fast or have not yet experienced the consequences thereof in their lives, young drivers between here and CVU. So, those things all play into what's going on out there, but we will get some more formal notes on what that pavement condition and road width is and what's realistic for striping and lane width. I would not be surprised if what we land on in a short term is a discussion of some signage treatments that raise awareness, thinking about where those speed zones begin and end. Sharrows is an interesting one. I don't know if the speed differential on this road between the bicycles and the cars would bear out being able to apply sharrows. Because the sharrow is actually, this is the double chevron with the bicycle symbol under it. If you see it applied correctly to a street, it's put right in the middle of the lane. And it's meant to communicate at the tip of that arrow that the cyclist may be in the entire lane. And that's the safest place for them to be, and that cars should, wait to pass until safe, which is hard for people to do. So it'll be interesting to see what the commentary on that is. The other thing, Megan, back to the point about adding stop control, that suggestion raised a pretty vigorous negative response in our public works director, who said we don't use stop signs to do traffic calming. And he's right that, the manual on uniform traffic control devices, the MUTCD, says don't put stop signs in just to slow people down. So when you do put stop signs in is when you start to see volumes that warrant them. So that we talk about, does it meet the warrant or not? And if this group is interested, I'll see if I can dig up the technical work that CCRPC did over in Finney Crossing. So we had a two-way stop that we changed to a four-way stop at the Healthy Living parking lot, Market Street and Holland Lane. That was something that had been requested for probably a year and a half. And Bruce, the public works director, had said, I'll do it if we have a study that says we should do it. And we did do that study and had a study that bore it out. So it would be interesting to look at the volumes and turning movements they're seeing there. And it's not quite the same. Obviously, it's a four-way, not a three-way. My guess is there's higher volume at peak times. But it might give this group a little bit of insight just into what those numbers really look like.
As someone that used to run that road a lot and still bikes it sometimes, if I could speak more to Megan, I guess, just to say, I think you're really right about signage about bicycles on that road and looking out for them. That would do a lot. I think sharrows on the downhill side from South Road to the four-way intersection at the church and the quick stop is totally appropriate, because going down there, you can go as fast as a car should go. I would have a hard time with stop signs, partly because when you're going up Oak Hill, the last thing you want to do is stop when you get there and you still have more hill if it's slippery weather and so forth. And I think it would be annoying to people. But I just want to say, I really like the idea of the sharrows. I like the idea of the signs a whole lot. And I also agree that striping, even if you don't have enough width to have a bike lane, putting a stripe there helps focus the driver and maybe slow them down a little bit. So I'm good with that. And a related point, I was wondering, I rode on Oak Hill on Mountain View Road the other day, and it has lines that looked almost like a bike lane, except it sometimes disappears.
Yeah, they really like that.
And I wondered how that came to be and whether there's been a lot of discussion about that. Do you know, Matt?
There hasn't, so what's there would just be the occurrence of repaving and restriping, by our normal contractors. So I'm not sure what they're doing out there, but Mountain View Road generally has a greater pavement width, than Oak Hill.
Didn't Public Works get striping equipment? I was wondering if Public Works did it.
I don't think they did.
Okay.
I think we're still, contracting all of that out. I can check for you.
Okay.
I think I saw them on, Old Prairie
Yeah,
in a
could be.
Public Works
It could be.
truck striping when I was coming back from my last meeting.
Anyway, I think that on Mountain View, it's kind of frustrating because it shows that there's not room for a bike lane. But it also is, I could see that it would help somebody operating a motor vehicle to stay a little bit closer to the center line and be more aware of the side.
With the signage, I don't want to blur that there's the new legislation with the cycling specifically, but I like the inclusive signs that show like tractors and a person pushing a stroller and a biker, and sort of like we share the road with all of these different things, slow moving, huge vehicles, people with small children, cyclers, like kind of putting us all on the same team. Because I think the more that you show that there's no reason to be an aggressive driver around somebody who needs to move differently, that's kind of like the messaging I think the community needs to hear. And I think there is a whole world where people, don't feel the same way about cycling as exercise versus tractors for work, or, you know what I mean? There's these different viewpoints that I think if we could find examples of signs that are inclusive in a way, maybe that would be an advantage for us.
When I used to run on that road, one time somebody in the back seat of a car swung their door open trying to hit me as I went by. Right there in Oak Hill, on that hill.
I believe it. I used to cycle in Baltimore and I would hit cars all the time that got close to me. I would just smash the back of their window. I mean, people are nuts and it's scary. But I think, I drive that road every day to go home. I've seen Megan biking many times on that road. And, I kind of feel the same way when I've got my kids in the wagon, or I've got, and it's, it's a less of a moment to be able to have a pickup truck blaze by you.
And I didn't say it, Megan, but I also agreed with the 30 miles an hour from South Road down to the intersection. I know Bruce won't do that without a study that says that's the right limit, but I agree.
Did speed humps come up at all? I know like Jericho's done it. Richmond did it on Cochran Road. I mean, they've shown up.
Yeah, there was a lot of mockery of speed tables, because there was the example of North Williston Road down at the bottom near Fay Lane, where I don't know if you remember, a couple of years ago they put a speed table at the bottom, and then all the residents complained about how much noise cars made going over the speed table. And as Kevin pointed out during the meeting, so people were going really fast over the speed table and making a lot of noise. And so they took out the speed table, which is kind of sadly ironic.
I think that's a 35-mile-per-hour section. And I can tell you that I would never drive over it. That's the one that they use. I would never go over it at 35. I had to go down to 25 just to drive over it. It was the wrong piece of equipment.
I'm thinking of
really quite intense too.
The ones
ones that are more like built in.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ones right in the little village.
Yeah.
Yes, they're pretty intense, but the speed limit there is 25.
Yeah.
Yes.
The problem I had up there is they're equally intense, and the speed limit's 35, and you've tried to drive over them at 35. You do make a lot of noise, and break your car. I really like the center vibrators that they put on North Williston Road, and I'm hoping that's something they consider on the curves of Oak Hill Road.
I have to say, I disagree on that. From my experience, that on both North Williston Road and then also on 117, what happens is that if you're a cyclist on the right side, people don't want to move over because they don't want to make the noise.
Yes.
So they end up going flying past you really close just so that they don't make the
Yes.
big noise.
Yes.
And
That's the
so
point.
it's the sad irony that it has the best of intentions to kind of keep people in the lane, but it unfortunately works in the reverse and
Yeah.
threatens people
You're right.
more. Yeah.
It makes it safer for cars and less safe for bicyclists.
Yeah.
Cars coming the other direction don't get hit head on, but yeah.
Right.
Right, anything else we want to discuss around Oak Hill Road?
Thank you all for listening on my pet
Well,
my
thank
pet
you for
peeve
kind of
project.
giving us a thorough update. Um, so yeah, Matt, do you want to discuss either the town plan or the 2026 budget preview?
Oh, you already did minutes?
Yeah, we were at the end. of the
Oh,
agenda.
bummer.
And we
It's a
discussed
big
the
end.
budget preview too.
So a couple things about town plan. First off, just nuts and bolts. Emily's email to you last week announcing the meeting had a suggesting link. So if you want to get in and you won't break anything, you can use that. If anybody wants a full-on editing link, we're happy to do that and talk about getting you in that way. And we also have this draft published out in the world in all of its evolutionary glory for everybody to see our work.
And a feedback form.
In a feedback form. I like the transparency. And I'm talking to Ellie and Hannah, my team today. I'm trying to dedicate like a work from home day every week going forward to the plan and drafting, because I simply cannot do it here as much as I love everybody here. It's very busy. And so we'll keep going on that. The other thing was particularly related to transportation. We received some comments from this group, Williston on the Move, and the first thing is for everybody to know that Williston on the Move exists. This is a non-governmental organization. It's essentially like a bike ped advocacy group centered around Williston. You probably know most of the people who are members. And they, through Amy Brewer, who's also our GMT rep, Green Mountain Transit rep, provided some really nice notes on the transportation chapter that I wanted to share with everybody. So the first reason I wanted to share was just say, hey guys, Williston on the Move's out there. There's another citizen group that's interested in some of the same things the Planning Commission is. And also they've provided some really nice comments more broadly about what we say about transportation in this upcoming town plan. So I thought there were some really terrific suggestions in here. I didn't know if anybody saw anything they wanted to talk about or follow up on. And you know, if we get this kind of, you know, really useful feedback from folks in the future, I'd love to bring them back here, you know, for other chapters as well. So
We all pretty much like what they said and thought that your team should incorporate them as much as possible. There was only one of them that I can't remember what it was, but one of them I thought, well, that's a good idea. Oh, it was about the airport. I thought we shouldn't be putting in our town plan what the airport should do. That was the only one that I wouldn't put in our town plan, but.
which was the
It's about like bike share at the airport.
Or bike lockers, or
Yeah,
it's more bike facilities anyway.
yeah.
Oh, just to advocate, I think it's just under the theory that the airport's a regional
Yeah.
transportation facility and, yeah, Hannah actually had a question for me last week about what's the bike parking like at the airport? And I said, well, I have a bike that lives behind my shed that I don't care if it gets rained on or stolen, and that's the one I ride to the airport because of where I know the bike parking to be is not very well protected.
Yeah, that's my current question for Friday. I haven't decided yet. But I think that the bird bike share, like people do drop them at the airport. So hopefully if I drop one on Friday, I can come back on Sunday. So
Yeah. Well, great. I think this is also a group, if folks from the PC want to interact with them. I had a conversation with Kevin Batson a little while back and just offered to attend a meeting and, answer questions both about the town plan and just sort of the town's approach to some of these matters in general. And happy to keep those lines of communication open. In a similar theme, Melinda Scott was at the CATMA, Champlain Area Transportation Management Association conference today. And she sent me some notes that she was talking with Susan Grasso from Local Motion, who's on this memo, about some quick build projects, probably on the bike path, the non-bike path bike route through Southridge, thinking about a quick build project there to enhance bikeability and navigability of that maybe next spring. So
what's a quick build project?
it's something a little less, I think, than a pilot project, which was the term we kind of went into it with. But it's usually placing temporary infrastructure in a way that can be done quickly to enhance both the wayfinding of the desired route as well as generally to calm traffic a little bit. So I think what they're doing right now in South Burlington, they are actually calling a pilot. I should look at that, but
So like signage and striping?
so they'll do, I only know what I'm seeing in South Burlington. This might be a little more intense than what they're talking about here, but they did signage of a safe route to school route from the Chamberlain neighborhood north of Williston Road by the airport, all the way to the high school and middle school over on Dorset Street. And they used some existing paths, some low volume suburban streets in Mayfair Park south of Williston Road, and then you can actually cut through to a street called Prouty Parkway that comes out on 116. And then there's a pedestrian crossing across 116 into it's one of the sort of nest of streets in my neighborhood that gets you all the way over to the high school. And so they provided information to the schools about that. They provided signage along the route. And in a few spots where the street was especially straight or wide, they added some like Tractor Supply trough planters and hay bales and signage saying, this is part of a safe route to school. So it's all of that, and then encouraging school kids to use it. So it just kind of shows people it's a lot easier to do a quick and temporary modification of a street than a permanent one in terms of what you have to do for studies and things like that. The real value is often that people decide they like it. They go, oh, wow, that really slowed down traffic in my neighborhood. And, or someone who uses it says, wow, that really made it more safe for me to use that street. Or I never knew I could get from there on my bike. And so it can lead to more permanent options. Burlington uses a version of Quick Build. If you see places where they've done what's called daylighting of intersections, this is where you have parallel parking on the street. And when you get to an intersection, sometimes there will be one or more parallel parking spots that are close enough to the intersection that they start to really reduce visibility, again, especially for vulnerable users. You eliminate one or two parking spaces leading up to and away from the intersection. In Burlington's case, they put a bollard, a flex post, or a big concrete planter there. And they've been doing that seasonally for a bunch of years now, but they can take it away for plowing in the winter. So that's another sort of a quick build strategy. I don't think we'd be getting into that here, but it was nice to hear that there was some interest in Local Motion and coming out here. We've been kind of talking about that internally for a long time.
I don't know if this is included in that, but they've also done a lot of like turn boxes in downtown Burlington, so that there's like a whole bike lane in front of the cars at intersections. So
Yeah,
you can like go in the bike lane all the way to the intersection and then turn without having to like interact with cars while they're moving.
yeah, it would be probably a little more permanent, because sometimes you have to look at where you put the stop bar
Yeah.
to make room for that. But you know, a lot of people call that, if you look on YouTube for bike box, there's a lot of
Yeah.
videos about how to do that. There's one, it's kind of, the paint's kind of wearing, but Spear Street and Allen Road in South Burlington, where South Village comes in, there's a bike box there, and it also generally requires, in that case, signing the intersection, no right turn on red, because you want to eliminate that
Right.
conflict. So they do that there, and I go through that intersection a lot. There's pretty good compliance. But yeah, you know, there's a lot of small interventions that don't cost a lot, but do add, you know, some complexity and a little bit of maintenance to the roadway. But don't require creating new pavement or new right of way. And those are the ones that get really expensive.
In the Southridge neighborhood, on the hilly part that is on the bike path is on the streets, Sharrows would be very nice. On the downhill side, it would indicate that it's a bike path.
Yeah.
As well as that it's okay to take the lane.
Those streets are really very low volume. They're wide because they were built to a modern standard. So they do allow for much higher vehicle speeds than anybody would really want, you know, across their front yard. But the nice thing with that width today is now there's opportunity to do something with it. So that will be interesting if we can move forward on that. Yeah, just a lot of interest in bike ped, which I love. Back to my agenda.
We did look at the FY 25 capital budget comment letter,
Okay,
which the planning commission wrote at the beginning of this year, I believe, and assuming that you kind of had us put that on the agenda for us so we can see where we were last year at this point and kind of what we wanted so that we can compare it to this year's.
yeah, so I wanted to just remind everybody that the capital budget review season is nearly upon us. Obviously, the FY 26 capital budget hasn't been created yet, but it's being worked on by the department heads.
And we have asked be led into the process of developing it, so we're not commenting after the fact.
So tomorrow, our co-chairs and I and Eric Wells have a meeting to talk about that. So I wanted to also have it on the agenda, just to let everybody on the commission know that we're doing that. We're trying to get out in front of having that conversation with Eric. And I think both in terms of capital and operating budget, what I've been told and what I think everybody won't be surprised by is that we expect kind of another lean and relatively tough budget year in FY 26. School taxes are going to continue to rise. I think we will face a difficult approval vote in March as a result of that. And the town's costs continue, our costs to just keep doing what we do have continued to rise, both health insurance as well as, the price of road salt and fuel and all kinds of other things. So just prelude to that. But I think we'll be able to talk more at our meeting in November about, the results of that conversation with Eric, and we'll probably have something more drafty to look at by then as well.
So just a preview is that our operating budget is very safety heavy,
Yes,
like over $7 million for fire, EMS and police. And when you compare that to the budgets for any of the other departments, it's worsening. And that's, we were talking about, that's reactive safety, and proactive safety is quality of life things, all the things we're putting in the town plan. And I would hope that the department heads are looking at the letter we sent in January and saying that's goals that are in For the capital, because the operating budget is that way, but the capital budget doesn't have to be that way. The capital budget is by definition longer term things. And so our long-term view should be in keeping with the town plan. And so capital budget should follow the things that we identified in our January letter in commenting on the last capital budget. So it's a really good guide for people developing their budgets that, this is what would be in line with the town plan when you're talking about capital, which is long-term, as opposed to operational, which is near-term.
Yeah, and I did want to, I provided a link to last year's, the fiscal year we're in now, the operating budget, and, said go to page 23. And the reason I did that is because there's a pie chart on that page that shows what Chapin's talking about in operating, which is, that public safety is almost half of the town's budget, 47%. The next largest chunk is public works at 17. That's almost entirely maintaining what we have and largely roads. I mean, we also maintain water mains and sewer lines, and sometimes we dig out the back of Matt's office so it doesn't flood anymore, which happened today. It's live excavation.
Is that way your office was cleaned out?
Yeah, so they are maintaining the physical plant of the town.
Yeah, I mean, Public Works maintains so much infrastructure and their budget is much smaller than either police or fire.
Yeah. So, those are just sort of things to think about in terms of, what the town really is and really does. And the truth is that, planning and zoning is a tiny piece of it. And that's okay. We don't want to be gigantic, but it really to me kind of brings home how expensive it is just to do sort of the basic things that most folks have come to expect the town to provide. And actually, I will be heading next door again, and whenever Eric texts me, probably when Andrew gets done, the select board is going to be talking a little bit about some master planning for public safety and facilities needs, which will be capital needs. And also talking about studying the idea of a public safety impact fee, such that new development would pay a little more of its share of the demand that it brings. And that's not a novel thing. Both Burlington and South Burlington charge a fee like that on new development. And it's something we would help at the planning and zoning level. The select board consider, and it would probably be part of the zoning bylaw. And actually, Eric just texted me and I need to go over there. So is there anything else? You folks may very well wind up before I get back.
Yeah, we're done.
If you're good.
Do you want to make a pitch for Municipal Day?
Yeah, Emily sent everybody information about Municipal Day. We are happy to send folks lots of great resources. There's a whole ton of stuff to pick from on Municipal Day, and just let one of us know you want to go.
They looked fantastic, many of them.
All right, I will see you folks after the election,
Oh, my God.
hopefully. Hopefully I'll see you all then.
That is coming up, isn't it?
Yeah.
We are not meeting that night. So,
Yeah.
thank you, everybody.
Come on.
See ya.
If
Good
you wanna head out, after you shut the meeting down, I'll let that one archive and I'll
Okay,
close up.
yeah, I can close up the meeting. but-
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Cool. Thanks,
Night.
Matt. Bye. Cool.
All right, anything else anyone would like to discuss?
Anyone
If I just- I
planning
could
to
just-
go for this municipality from the commission?
What'd you ask?
Anybody planning to go on this November 1st to Mount earlier?
I'm planning to go.
Municipal-
You plan to go, yeah. And were you thinking about it?
I'm not sure yet. I hadn't looked at the agenda yet.
If I could, I would, but I don't think I can.
Agenda is very interesting.
I went a few years ago, like before COVID, and I think it was maybe 2019. And it was super interesting. They feed you lunch. And
Yeah, yeah. They have a breakfast
and-
and lunch and everything
yeah,
else and
it
different
was great.
session.
It was good because it was like a little bit of kind of like big presentation, you know, on a theme. And then it was lots of different rooms or kind of breakout sessions or workshop thingies that you could go to. And, you know, you kind of meet other people from other towns who are doing similar work and hear some good ideas. And yeah, it was definitely a positive experience. I can't go this year with my teaching schedule, but it's worthwhile.
I plan to go.
Were you gonna say something?
Oh, yeah. Before this meeting, I attended the library design committee meeting over at the library. You're familiar with that the library will expand their site plan includes a parking lot beyond it on the green, which takes out a lot of trees and all the space where the town band is played. So I was there representing the band. What are we gonna do? And we were talking about different arrangements on the green, and it was a good discussion. So I just wanted you to know that's moving forward. The designing is, and it's problematic that one access road serves the community park, the school, and the library, and it obviously any special events, and now the library's gonna expand, and they want to have more parking for the library, and so that's adding more complexity.
Yeah.
Did they take into consideration the like sound issues that we
Yes.
talked about at that? So would they
Yes.
move the?
The problem is where the library is going, and the parking lot is not something that would change, I don't
Okay.
think. And so we were looking at, well, with that there, do you put the band, close the parking lot and have the band on the parking lot? So it's back away from this road a lot, or do you have it somewhere else and then you have to move the gazebo, the bandstand, or some other arrangement?
It
I
just
went-
seems like there's already so much parking over there.
I
Especially
went
if
with
they
maps
take
that I
into
made.
consideration that we might be getting more parking right here. Like a
Um,
whole new.
Although I was over there
On the
before this,
green.
and there were like 3 sports going on, and like all of the parking was full,
Mhm.
and that was like at 4:30.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and I've been to the library a handful of times when that lot gets full. I'm just like, if we're putting in a whole nother lot
Yeah.
here. Could we just put in flasher beacons and, you
Well,
know?
we have a flashing
yeah,
beacon,
but
yeah.
they took out half of it.
Yeah,
I
I don't know why,
don't know
what happened, but
to it,
a car went right off,
Yeah.
took out the flasher beacon and then post and everything.
Mhm.
Okay,
So,
Thanks.
well,
All right, do we vote to adjourn? All those in favor of, do we have a motion to adjourn? Okay, Hannah, second Chapin,
I think-
all in favor?
Yeah.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Good night.
good night.
I thank you.
Thank you. Have they decided on,
Wait,
I saw sorry, I'm probably in my thought. They had a couple designs for the library, the last I saw.
Wait,
They have decided a design.
I don't think I
And
can.
This
Turn it
doesn't
off.
show all of
My
it, but
computer.
this is the current library with
Do you want me
the
to-
courtyard and the current entrance.
Mhm.
I